and the group as a whole, along with investor relations. He has recently led the company to a very successful public listing and is now setting up the corporate development function for the group. Prior to joining policybazaar.com, Alok has worked in various cross-functional roles with Mahindra & Mahindra and GE. He was recognized as one of the top 100 CFOs in the country by the CFO India magazine in 2016. Mr. Deepak Bagla, MD and CEO of Invest India. Mr. Bagla has had a stellar career spanning over 3 decades with the World Bank, Citibank, and private equity, having responsibilities across Europe, Africa, and Asia. Invest India is the national investment promotion and facilitation agency promoted by the Government of India, and he's also a member of several high-level government committees, including ones on fintech and innovation. He was on the investment committee for the US government's $1.5 billion fund of funds for startups, and is on the advisory board of the government's $7 billion fund of funds for MSMEs. He is the president of the Geneva-based World Association of Investment Promotion Agencies with membership of 105 countries. So I'd like to invite both of them up on stage, and to chair this session, may I invite Mr. Sameer Manchanda, a serial entrepreneur and non-executive director and chairman of DEN Networks, India's leading cable television distribution company. Mr. Manchanda is a trained chartered accountant and has been associated with the finance and Indian electronic media industry for over 3 decades. He's also the president of the News Broadcast Association and currently a member of CII and FICCI's Media Entertainment Committees. May I request all 3 gentlemen to please come up on stage.
Thanks, Rini. I'm convinced that actually the next few decades and even the century belongs to India. The reasons for my conviction are quite a few. The prominent ones being, the first one being macroeconomic stability. As we see it, I think the worst of the if you look at the bank cleanup, that's happened. The NPA crisis is behind us. There is no over-leverage by corporates, no household over-leverage, and our fiscal deficit is in control. If you look at our tax to GDP ratio of 11.7, which has been the highest, nearing to 12%, I would see our macroeconomic situation very much in control, in fact healthy. If I look at the second point is geopolitical tailwinds. Large corporates, as you're aware, multinationals, all want to diversify, reduce the dependence on China. And if you look at it, the government has seized the initiative by various PLI schemes, and I'm convinced that actually India could be the next manufacturing hub. You also heard plans of Apple, the next iPhone 14 being made in India. Now that is going to be real testimony of India's manufacturing progress. Third, actually a very important point, are demographics. 65% of our population is under 35. It also, of course, puts the pressure that every year we have a large number of youth coming into job force. But I am clear that with the years to come and the employment opportunities rising, this job force, these young people will actually be a multiplier to our GDP. And we are seeing that. And I think it will be the future as manufacturing, services, the rest of all the sectors take off. This is what's going to really help multiply our GDP, being a multiplier factor. The fourth actually is being a digital revolution. I mean, we all witnessed to the digital revolution which has taken place. The last 5-10 years I've seen broadband, internet, or data offtake being really reaching the highest in the world. Now what does that mean? If you look at simple terms, Aadhaar, which is unique identity number, has made things so simple. You can actually open up your bank account remotely. If you look at the vaccination program, pandemic is all again with your Aadhaar. All those things of digital payments, medical remote, all that has been helped with digitalization. Forget about entertainment and infotainment, which you've seen as a revolution happening. It also means that actually remote rural areas become more inclusive. They're no longer, the boundaries of actually being so many kilometers away get drawn out or get withdrawn because of digitalization. You're become a part because the news is now, or information is available with everyone real time. But it's global, India, and that's what the digital revolution has done. And I would feel with the advent of 5G and actually more broadband penetration taking off to rural areas, this will accentuate the progress. The next is, if you look at good governance and political stability. Now, we've seen that. I don't need to answer that more in detail. Actually, it also stems in with the points which I've highlighted above. Stand up and show the good governance. The last but not the least, actually a very important point, is when you really compare the world at large. Now, when you look at the world at large, what's happening? Just look at it. You look at the US. And in the US, what's happening? Inflation at a record high. And what is it saying? They're saying is the best case, a benign or less recession, which they call it soft landing, or worst case, a very bad recession. But a recession is imminent. Nobody's questioning that. I mean, it's all saying that, what could be the best case of recession be. Then you look at UK and Europe. UK, inflation levels more than 10%. Similarly with Europe, energy crisis, and then you get on looming recession. Go to China. If you look at China has its own problems, you see a real estate crisis. You have seen actually with zero COVID policy, closures. So where does it leave India? It leaves India as the only shining beacon in the whole of the world with size. And what does that mean when you are shining with anywhere else? Where does it mean? It attracts capital. Effectively, I see large amount of investments coming into India, which when it comes in, creates actually job opportunities, creates high GDP, and we carry on growing and growing. So I would say that it'll be a very different, a strong, vibrant, and economic superpower India in the years to come. With that, I would ask Deepak, who's heading the Invest India, saying what are his feelings and what is he seeing on the ground.
Thank you, Samir. Good evening. Such a pleasure to have you all here. A very quick one, where do I come from, so you'll know where my comments are coming from. We were an entity called Invest India, which is 4 verticals. The first is investment promotion and facilitation, where we work right across with all investors, both domestic and global. By the way, it's completely funded by the government. It's not an entity which makes profit on these things. The second is Startup India. We are the execution arm for Startup India. The third is the Prime Minister's Science and Technology Initiative. So all innovation happening within the system to see where we can commercialize it fast. And any innovation which is happening outside, see how do we bring it into the government, be it agriculture, be it the border security force, or be it anywhere in all the sectors. And the last is the digitization of the entire investor journey, from getting a national single window to dashboards where the Prime Minister personally monitors a large number of these projects and how they are succeeding. We just saw a clip when the Prime Minister mentioned how we moved from number 6 to number 5. Just think about it. In the past 84 months, we moved ahead of Russia, Italy, Brazil, France, UK. Superpowers. In terms of a GDP. In 84 months. It is unprecedented. Give me an example of any other economy in the world which has moved at that pace. The reason why I mention that is that I think what is happening in India is now being globally acknowledged as one of the most unprecedented transformation in human history, both in terms of scale and the pace at which it is happening. And I know it's a very strong statement. You'll all push back and say, where is it coming from? I've given you an idea on the scale, but let me just share a little more, and let me share with statistics and numbers. We closed this year with an FDI of $83.5 billion. the highest ever FDI you've got in your history. And remember, during a year when there was complete lockdown, actually think about it, even 120 days ago, did you ever imagine you'll be in a room without any masks? How fast things change, right? So 83.5 billion, the highest ever you've got in our history. And I'll also give you an example, 2020, again, in the lockdown. Global FDI went down by 35%. Your FDI went up by 8%, probably the only country on the planet. Now let me tell you some more other interesting things about this number of 83.5 which I shared with you. It came from 101 countries. A global record. It's not just about the number. 101 countries today respect you for your leadership, trust you for your opportunity, trust you for the entire partnership which India offers, and trust you for your openness. And most importantly, trust you for your future.
Deepak, what are you seeing in the pipeline? What are you seeing in the future?
Let me just finish with this. The second very interesting point, it came across 57 sectors. It's unbeatable. The transformation which India is witnessing has touched each and every one of us. And that is what is showing the entire bouquet of sectors which have suddenly opened up. 57 sectors have received FDI. And before you ask me again, let me give you the last part, which is the most heartening for me in this one. This time it came across 31 states and union territories. The growth of engine of India has moved away from those few metros to a bottom-up approach. This is driving the new India. And I mentioned to you about the scale, and let me just give you 2-3 examples on the pace, if may I, with your permission. And pace is critical because this is what this transformation, when I called you and I mentioned, it's unprecedented. Let's all agree that data is the new oil. Agreed? Now, if you think about it, when was it? 15th July 2015, when the Honorable Prime Minister launched Digital India? Mohan, you would remember this? 15th July, right? So we are what, 72 months hence from that. On the 15th of July 2015, when Digital India was inaugurated, your global position on per capita data consumption was 123. 123. Last year, number 1. India consumed more per capita mobile data. No, Mohan, there's more to it. You consumed more per capita mobile data than China and the US put together. And let me also tell you, last year, 41% of the world's real-time transactions happened in India. 41%. You did 48 billion transactions. Number 2 was China with 18 billion. Are you seeing the difference grow? And Mohan, let me bring it very quickly to something close to you. The Prime Minister launched Startup India on what? 16 January 2016? You were there. So that's what? This story is 72 months?
Yep.
When we launched Startup India then, we had 454 startups in India. Today, 75,000. But I'll tell you what's more interesting. You are number 3 in the world in number of unicorns. In fact, in 2020, in the midst of the lockdown, we added a unicorn every 26 days. Last year, we added you. Last year in 21, again in the midst of the lockdown, we added a unicorn every 9 days. But I'll tell you what is most heartening for me. Of those 775 plus districts of India, today I have a registered startup in over 670 districts of India. 50% of my startups are from tier 3, tier 4 cities. And don't forget, 11% of the world's population lives in our villages. This, what has changed, is the digitization. And my last 1 minute, Samir. The reason why I say that, I've shown you the opportunity. When I mentioned to you that we had unicorns, it is the ability to access that opportunity. For the first time in human economic history, a brand new company got 100 million new customers in 180 days. And a cost of acquiring a customer was 1/5 of the global average. Never before has it ever happened. So let me now let you know, in the next 9,000 days, we will be 100 years old. And when we are 100 years old, 20% of the world's work class will be with you. 21% of the world's middle class will be here. Tell me any other parallel in the world which can match it. Thank you.
None. So true. We've all said that and we believe that, and we really witnessed a digital revolution as we said it. Alok, what have you seen? I would say the insurance sector itself, would have really taken off with the advent of digitalization.
No, definitely. So good evening, everyone. See, if we talk of insurance per se, obviously insurance is all about data. But just building on what Deepak ji mentioned, if you look at India as a story, India is always seen as a market. When we talk to investors, they always talk about TAM, to target addressable market. And India has always been, out there that yes, it's one of the largest market possible. What has now started to happen is it's starting to deliver on that promise. And once you have the market, it's entrepreneurs who have to bring solution to that market. Now, when we look at, historically, we have had millions and millions of SMEs, shopkeepers, kirana shops. So we always had that entrepreneurial spirit. It's just that the enabling environment, capital, technology, labor, all that stuff has started to come together now. And once you have all the ingredients in place, you automatically have a lot more companies which will start to come out. And the best part is, because these companies start to come out, they start to create jobs. Instead of looking for a job, now you have people who are creating jobs. And that's the one biggest change. If you look at next 30, 40, 50 years, that's going to drive the growth of this country. When we started 14, 15 years back, starting a new company was seen as a very risky venture generally. And today it's seen as something which most of people aspire to do right out of college. So the whole mindset has transformed in that period. So the way this whole data piece, the delivery piece, technology piece is going to impact every vertical. And in finance services specifically, because of the nature of the product where you don't have any physical good, is obviously going to be the biggest beneficiary. We have all seen what UPI has done for the payment systems. The way RuPay has become such mainstream. Now buying insurance, getting a credit card, getting a loan online is something which seems very natural to everyone. And again, this is not just restricted to the metros. It's gone down so much into the tier 2, tier 3. Today we have got more than 60% of the volume that comes to us from those cities outside of top 10 metros. If you look at our presence, we are opening offices all over India. Why? Because the customer is not happy to just talk to someone who is sitting out of, say, Gurgaon or Mumbai. They want a person who is sitting in their city to feel comfortable. And, today we have got presence in some 90 cities plus, and it's going to become some 200 cities plus very soon. So, the way the whole technology piece, and with 5G, I hope this will just accelerate, where the customers can get access to a lot of services in a much easier way. So, I'm very, very optimistic about what future holds for us. The only one thing which typically we should not fall in the trap of is looking at a monthly or a quarterly parameters. Because directionally, we are headed into a future which we deserve and we were always hoping for.
Deepak, one question for you. With the recession, imminent recession the world over, as they're talking about, and you've seen some AI outflows, in the FIA outflows, are you seeing on the inflation level there, are you seeing the same amount of interest with the firms who wanted to come into India, which you saw in the last 12 months?
So Samir, before I answer that, I think India is at one of its most important inflection points in its history of 5,000 years. And I'll tell you why I say that. For the first time in our history, every individual has turned into a human resource who can participate in the growth of the country and partake from the benefits of the growth of the country. For the first time in our history. You're seeing the stories which you're seeing, bottom up and all that kind of stuff which is happening. And that is because of digitization to a large extent. To answer your question, I had few statistics. The team came up with this yesterday. They knew I was coming here. They knew he was going to question me, so I thought they might as well. There's some statistics. What is our GDP? It's the aggregate GDP of all our states and union territories, right? So let's go down to where the growth is happening, where it all comes from. Statistics are for 2015 to 20, that 5 year. And we're being a little okay because we didn't want to get into the pandemic here. If I look at the average growth of each of these states, I picked up the average. 27 states grew at 10% plus. 7 states grew at 8 to 10%. 2 states were just a little below 8%. And if I continue growing at this average growth rate, when you are 100 on 15th August 2047, you will be 52.9 trillion. This is the average. Okay? Now let me pick up what is the lowest which each of the states. So what we did is during these 5 years, pick up the lowest growth which they had in any year. If I take the lowest, you will be 30 trillion in 2047. That's the lowest. That is work as usual. Guys, when you're not going to be doing anything more. But now let me give you where your potential is. If I pick up the highest which each of these states has achieved during that period of time, I have 35 of them which have grown at 10% plus. I have 7 of them which have grown at more than 15%. I have 3 of them which have grown than more than 20%. And these are big states which I'm talking about. And if I add this and if I go by that highest point, the potential number, and this is pure math, works to $108 trillion. Why have I shared with you? You have actually shown that that potential is possible. I've not created any spread on those that you've grown at 8, let's push you to 10. We've not even started at that. Tell me one another place. You know, we were in Davos earlier this year. This year Davos was in summer. A very interesting roundtable of financial investors, 21 of them. And one of the big financial investors is doing a 2x. He said they're going to do a 2x of their current exposure in India in the next 24 months. And another one asked that person why. And he had a very interesting point. He said in India, every tomorrow is better than today. And I think there is no better term and no better line than that, which sums it up. If you look at the tagline of my startup team's presentation, I really loved it. You know, we have this competition internally all the time that come up with a presentation how we are going to take it across the world when we do to India. The startup team's byline, Mohan, was, we bring ideas to life. And there is no better country in the world with a far greater bouquet of ideas than what you are presented with this 1.4 billion today. Thanks.
That I agree. So you think all the decks are actually in favor of India. And if you look at those 5 points that you said, the world, look at the world, look at digital revolution, look at China, you know, people leaving China and coming into India for manufacturing, everything else is really there. And you know, when I've also traveled to the US, you've seen that they're the only country, I mean, so that by far the sentiment is there, which they really want to invest in, is India. And if I go back 15 years back or 10 years back, a leading US giant, one of the largest companies, would say that, the investment in India would happen if the chairman actually took the flight to India. Now, I think those days are over. I think everything is really inclined, and that's what I'm saying is that I do firmly believe that we would be surprised by the large amount of investments which are going to flow in. I think it's going to surpass all expectations. And this is really our time, and it's our time to actually capture this moment, which I think we are actually, all the decks are there. Alok, I'll ask you a question. I mean, you've had this, we've all talked about digitalization, and we think what we like about that is it's really made everything inclusive. The gaps between, as you said, rural and this, it's shortened the distances, everybody's inclusive, whether it's finance, whether it's news, whether infotainment, everything else. It's just changed the way, you think, you live, and it's caused aspirations to grow. For a young country, it's a big thing, right? What are you seeing now with, of course, 5G, which is going to be launched, and we have got a program which will take broadband, fixed line broadband to even rural areas, which will actually accentuate the digitalization. What would you feel is the future there? How much is that growth which is still left?
I think, if there is an arbitrage between metro and the rural, 5G is going to bridge that very, very fast. Today, most of the...
Sorry, we didn't hear. What did you say? There will be no arbitrage.
Yeah, because 5G will even the field. Today when we look at most of the people who are trying to build a business, they are looking at urban India because they believe that urban India is able to consume those services in a much easier way. But the paying capacity is there in rural India as well. And, when we look at India, it's not just urban and rural, there's tier 2, tier 3, there are lots and lots of segments. And those segments are hungry for those services. The biggest problem would be that if we look at India as just being urban. So somewhere, I think the whole, not just the 5G, but a lot of stuff which is happening is going to enable a lot more demand coming from the hinterland. And that demand is very, very hungry to be supplied with something. And it's the biggest opportunity for a lot of businesses, including ours, to be able to create a solution which is able to cater to those customers who are out there. So as I said earlier, time was never a problem. It was always a theoretical concept. But today, if you are able to service that customer, you will be able to make a revenue out of it. And some of the numbers that Deepak ji mentioned, it looks very, very big, sitting today where we are. But ask anyone who has built a business, Arnab is here, I have built a business. When you start, it all looks like very, very far-fetched. But at some point of time, you get there also. You just have to keep on working through the midway and keep on believing that this is possible. As a country, if we are able to create these 100 unicorns, what is stopping us to create another 100 or another 500 unicorns? Today we have got 13,000 plus employees. If suppose every company is able to create those 10,000, 20,000 jobs, what will happen to the economy? And the money which comes back as circulation of that money in the economy, what will that create to the demand for each and every product? It's not just financial services or any specific one category.
Correct. So
today when you go out, you see none of the flights have any single seat. Hotel rates are going through the roof. Malls are all full. So there must be something right. We just need to, I think, somewhere drown the naysayers, believe in ourselves, and just keep on working on making India into a real superpower.
See, I agree. See, the effect of digitalization again is that it brings in transparency in the economy, right? You cannot say everything is above board, which would also mean higher GSTs, higher collections, higher everything, which is this thing. So I think, but tell me one thing on a thing when you talked about, we know the startup thing. Tell me, what was really the turning point? What was the lowest and what was the real turning point which you saw? What actually turned? Was it, which in these years of journey, what was really the big turning point that you, if anyone, would you like to tell the audience?
So one, it's very interesting you asked me that. Mohan, you remember when we were launching this startup thing in Goa? And there was a discussion, what should be the target of number of unicorns by 2025? And there was a thought, let's do about 150, let's be real about it. And Mohan said, let's do 250. And everybody said, you guys are off. 250 is not even a thought. Tell me anyone here who will say it's not even a thought now. 2025, we will far exceed the 250. I'll tell you what happened. The other interesting thing, when we were launching Startup India, the first thing was a society's ability to celebrate failure. We did not have that.
No. That's true. That's been missing.
I mean,
It's a
if
big
you
thing.
had a guy who was in a startup, he would never get a mother-in-law who will agree for their daughter to get married to. Look, I'm serious. That's how it was. It's changed completely. You look at the top schools today, when you go there and you want to go to the top 100 of them would be joining a startup and doing it. The first thing is that change in the mindset that failure is a learning process. 2 is success stories like yours. Very important for us. And this morning I had a big multinational group which had come into the office. And they said, if you were to give us 3 reasons why India is where it is today and where it will be tomorrow, what will those be? And quite frankly, I had not thought of it until then. But if there were just 3 I had to give. The first, very clearly, leadership. It's that without that you cannot do it, and it is that leadership which leads the way, which creates the aspiration, and which takes you there. The second, which is where we are lucky, is the dividend of age which we have. Your average age is 29. You are the youngest on the planet, and you will remain the youngest on the planet all the way up to 2070. It is an unimaginable strength which can be brought up by the economy. And now just imagine, you will be 1.6 billion, you will be the highest human resource on the planet in the next 24 months. You know that, right? You would have crossed everybody else. Now just imagine if you have empowered this entire 1.6 billion. And where is that empowerment coming from? The digitization.
True.
Each and every individual, which is what I mentioned today. Guys, this story has only just begun. Don't forget. And the world sees it and the world believes it. What you said is very important. Now you need to believe it and you need to deliver it.
True. Deepak, one more thing, Alok, one more thing. You know, we've talked about, it's been things that we debate for the last 10, 15 years, that why internet in India has taken off. Could be various reasons. But one of the things which I do feel is that Indians by nature are very flexible and creative. And it starts at a very young age, even to cross a road. You've got to be looking left, right, everywhere, right? While in other countries, you just go walk on a zebra crossing. You don't have to look anywhere, just go. What is the reason why this data of tech, obviously they could be that you leapfrog technologies, you were this, but we really actually is like fish taking to water, is the thing that everybody you see now is on a smartphone. It's such a great feeling, and it shows in consumption, it shows on the e-commerce, it shows everywhere. And of course the young population does help but is there a thing that why do we really, as you said, in consumption, in e-payments, we've actually leapfrogged the entire world?
This is a very interesting point which was brought up by a professor from Stanford. They did a study on digitization across the globe. The Indian model of digitization is not substituting the existing infrastructure and supply chains, but by integrating the existing structure and supply chains.
I agree.
Which has been very unique vis-a-vis the world. So what we've done is we've been able to do far more for far less. I'll give you an example. Before digitization came, the distance between a customer and a seller was about 1,000 kilometers. Sorry, was about 5 kilometers. You had to go to a shop to buy it, at best 5 kilometers. After e-commerce, it's moved to 1,000 kilometers. How else can you harness the diversity of India? This is where the digitization point, and this is India's desire of each and every individual to do better, the strength of a leadership to make it into an aspirational society, not a crib society, which was always complaining and cribbing. Look at everyone today. I love the crib when it happens. Why aren't we getting more? You know, one thing we've just said, what we've just done. So we are digitizing the entire investor journey. You come onto my website. By the way, I must tell you, my website is rated higher than your website. Just a point in place. And by the way, it's also #1 in the world. We are ahead of CNN too. So what we have done is we've digitized the entire investor journey. You come onto the website, you get all information on India. We upside it every day. The second is you come onto my India investment grid. You have a set of projects, 10,800 of them currently, 195 countries have been visiting it. You can see the project as a global investor and get directly in touch with the proponent. You come to my industrial land bank. You will have plots which are ready. You click on that plot and you know where it is available. You know that big thing about getting land? Yeah. And we are soon going to bring it to a point. You click on it and you can apply for it. There's no human intervention so far. Then you come onto my national single window. Click AI-based. It will ask you a few questions. You will have one application form, Arnab. You will fill that out. You will get all your approvals for the central and the state government included. We've done a soft launch, 180 days. We've already done 25,000 approvals on it. And then it moves on to the project management group, which is with the cabinet secretary level, where they are managing projects to see on milestone basis, where is it getting stuck and how fast you remove it. Remember, you're soon coming to a point, which is all where it's being driven. Actually, when they asked me, what is the 10-year plan for Invest India? I said in 10 years, there should be no Invest India. But coming to that digital platform, AI-based, imagine if you just wanted to start an entity, you fill out one form, and it says that if within 30 days you haven't heard back, you've got all deemed approvals. And let me tell you, it's not utopia. You already have a few state governments which are doing it, and it's effective. And the other thing which I found in India, if one state does it, every state follows quickly. Good economics today is the center of good politics. And that is the other big change which has happened in India by this young generation and by the leadership.
Deepak, I'll just add to what Deepak said. You know, it's very important to note one thing here. Our current system of working was not optimal. And that's why with the use of digitalization or tech, we are able to leapfrog. We can see it in government with Invest India. We are seeing it in our industry where suppose you're breaking car insurance where a surveyor used to come to you, totally broken process. And if you're able to digitize that process by a video inspection which customers can do on their own, you are just leapfrogging the whole thing. And that's where I think we have a very big advantage because some of the things which are taken for granted in Western world may not work as smoothly in India. And that's where the digital impact is seen to be a very, very big game changer. And it's across all, as I said, government, corporate, individual level, everywhere. And you know, the whole digital push plus 5G sort of things are just going to accelerate that.
Sure.
It's been my last point. I know I've spoken
I just wanted
too
to
much.
add, Deepak, before that you made the Republic World, the #1 site after you being here. It's just
That's not fair.
It's just beaten your site, so I just wanted to add that.
But here I must tell you now my last point, which gives me my maximum strength and optimism. Many of you have dealt with the Invest India team. Sohail, you have done that. Mohan, you've done that. You have done that. I'll tell you why I'm telling you that. The average age of my team is the same as that of India, 29, if you keep me out of it. There are 400 of them, each one of them is from the best schools and universities in India and overseas. Each one of them has left the highest paying jobs, the best jobs which are considered. And every one of them has taken a pay cut from 7 to 92%, only to make the new India.
That is true.
This
is great.
is what is going to make the India.
Yeah. Which is true. Really highly commendable. The best talent here. And I think that's one of the factors contributing to this. With that, we will finish off today's program. Thank you very much. Thanks, Deepak. Thanks, Alok.
Thank you so much, Mr. Manchanda, Mr. Bagla, and Mr. Bansal. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we move on. India is working towards becoming a superpower, and the focus is really on self-reliance. Atmanirbharta sentiment is spanning across diverse sectors, and the overall idea is to put the nation first. Joining us now is Republic Media Network's consulting editor for strategic affairs, retired